So then let's explore the latest developments in this budget row with the political analyst. Sandile Swana is joining us now live from Gauteng. Sandile, thank you very much for making time for this evening. So let's start with where we're at today. MPs were meeting at 1200 GMT to review the committee's report on the budget. Can you give us a sense of what happened in that session?
Yes, thank you. What happened in that session is that obviously yesterday the Standing Committee on Finance had already made a decision in favor of tabling their report to Parliament, which means they would be asking for the approval of Parliament. So the people in favor of passing the budget were in the majority yesterday in the committee, and they anticipated to be in the majority again in Parliament today. The ones who were in the minority anticipated this, and they submitted letters of objection to the Speaker, the Chairman of the Parliament, that there were procedural flaws yesterday. Therefore, the meeting must not take place. Clearly, that would have benefited them because they knew they were not going to win the vote. So eventually, the Speaker listened to them and answered them and allowed the voting to proceed. And the side that won yesterday, which included the ANC, won again today. So the budget has been approved in South Africa today, although the losing side is very bitter. They are threatening court cases and so on and so forth.
So let's focus on that procedural flaws argument, right, that the DA and the EFF were making, because the ANC, as I understand it, relied on Action South Africa, which is a party outside this governing coalition, to get that report through the committee review on Tuesday. And in the view of these two parties, that was a flawed legal maneuver. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, so that part of it it can't stand in court because the relationship between the DA and the ANC, it's an agreement. It's almost like a gentleman's agreement. The coalition agreements, you can't go and enforce them in court. So that argument will not stand anywhere in court. The decision to adopt the budget is made by a simple majority decision, either in committee first and then in the open assembly. Now, the actual objection is that there was no time when the chairman of the committee asked them to vote in the committee. Although they agreed on a point-by-point basis, line by line they approved, line by line they agreed. But there was no time when they actually said, we're now voting on the whole document. That is what they are complaining about. Secondly, the idea that there were going to be additional changes, they say that the law says there must be a clear statement. That is made. They say the statement that was made is unclear. And those are the 2 points that they are going to go and challenge in court.
Indeed. So just to be clear for our viewers, the fact that the ANC and the DA and a bunch of other parties are in this government of national unity, that does not legally limit them from getting support for other measures from parties that did not sign this coalition document, right? That's essentially still legal, right?
Yes, that is absolutely legal. There's no problem with that. To be totally blunt, the budget is approved not by cabinet. It's actually approved by the parliament. So any members of parliament can vote for a budget and approve it by a simple majority. They don't have to be in any agreement. They don't need to be in any coalition.
Indeed. So the ANC still seems, at least my understanding of it, is that they're still quite determined to essentially get this VAT raise of 100 basis points over 2 years through Parliament, rather than focusing on cutting expenditure that would essentially bring that in line with the tax forecasts that they have coming out of National Treasury. Why is that?
The ANC has, I think, since 2009, held this philosophy of wanting to finance the state through tax increases. This has been very controversial among the top economists and the top universities here in South Africa. They seem to be very close to the IMF and other controversial bodies by South African standards in following that philosophy. And that philosophy is in big question right now.
One last question for you. So, in terms of just where this money would come from, right? There's still around 8 million South Africans out of work. The unemployment rate is still over 30%. And economic growth, right, is forecast to still be under that 2% figure in the medium term, so still fairly tepid. Even assuming that the VAT rate is raised by 50 basis points, right, given just how weak macroeconomic conditions are, will it really raise the revenues that the Finance Ministry is expecting it to?
Yes. The situation, the documents that have come out of the South African receiver of revenue, which is the taxman here in South Africa, indicate already that for this past year, they've exceeded the collection targets, I think by about 8 billion. Now, the big debate is between 30 and 60 billion amount of money that need to be raised. The chief tax collector believes that they are capable, if they were given a certain amount of money, they could easily, there's about 800 billion that they've not yet collected, that they could easily collect. Even if they just collected 100 billion this year, it would be enough to quench this. Bear in mind that the budget itself is about 2.6 trillion. And this whole argument that was a Bioscope movie today is actually about 60 billion at the most, between 30 and 60 billion. It's a small amount of money. So the taxman believes he can get this money without raising. He has been totally against the raising of taxes in South Africa. Secondly, there are other ways. There are other surpluses. For instance, our unemployment insurance fund has got about 103 billion rands that could be used. If, for instance, the taxman is slow in collecting that money, the Treasury could borrow 60 billion and comfortably service its needs until the taxman brings the money back and they settle that almost interest-free. So the ideology of the ANC is actually a problem here. Their adherence to IMF-type thinking is a problem, in my judgment, in this particular instance.